The Frisco Kid. The Frisco Kid is a 1979 American Western comedy film directed by Robert Aldrich, starring Gene Wilder as Avram Belinski, a Polish rabbi who is traveling to San Francisco, and Harrison Ford as a bank robber who befriends him. Plot: Rabbi Avram Belinski Wilder, newly graduated at the bottom of his class from the yeshiva, arrives in Philadelphia from Poland en route to San Francisco, where he will be a congregation's new rabbi. He has with him a Torah scroll for the San Francisco synagogue. Belinski, an innocent, trusting, and inexperienced traveler, falls in with three con men, the brothers Matt and Darrell Diggs, and their partner Mr. Jones, who trick him into helping pay for a wagon and supplies to go west, then brutally rob him and leave him and most of his belongings scattered along a deserted road in Pennsylvania. Still determined to make it to San Francisco, Belinski comes upon a colony of Pennsylvania Dutch Amish people, whom at first he takes for Jews. The Amish take care of Belinski and give him money for the train going west. When he reaches the end of the line in Ohio, the rabbi manages to find work on the railroad until he saves up enough money to buy a horse and some supplies. On his way west again, he is befriended and looked after by a stranger named Tommy Lillard Ford, a bank robber with a soft heart, who is moved by Belinski's helplessness and frank personality, despite the trouble it occasionally gives him. For instance, when Lillard robs a bank on a Thursday, he finds that Belinski, an Orthodox Jew, will not ride on the Shabbat even with a hanging posse on his tail. However, they still manage to get away, mainly because with the horses rested from having been walked for a full day, they are fresh and able to ride all night, outdistancing their pursuers. The two also experience American Indian customs and hospitality, disrupt a Trappist monastery's vow of silence with an innocent gesture of gratitude, and learn a little about each other's culture. While stopping in a small town not too far from San Francisco, Belinski encounters the Diggs brothers and Jones again. He gets into a fight with the three of them and, after taking a beating, is rescued by Lillard, who takes back what they had stolen from Belinski and more besides. Seeking revenge, the three bandits follow the pair and ambush them on a California beach where they have stopped to bathe. A firefight ensues. Tommy shoots Jones dead and grazes Matt Diggs, who flees the scene. Belinski experiences a crisis of faith when he is forced to kill Darrell Diggs in self-defense after Darrell wounded Tommy. Lillard restores his faith by an eloquent argument with simple language, reminding him that he still is what he is inside, despite what he had to do on the beach. When Matt Diggs, sole survivor of the ambushing trio, prepares to avenge his brother by killing Belinski, and Lillard springs to his friend's defense, Belinski, regaining his composure, shows his wisdom and courage in front of the entire community by disarming and exiling Diggs from San Francisco. The film ends with Belinski marrying Rosalie Bender, younger daughter of the head of San Francisco's Jewish community, with Lillard attending the ceremony as his best man. Cast: Gene Wilder as Avram Belinski, Harrison Ford as Tommy Lillard, Ramon Beery as Mr. Jones, Val Bisoglio as Chief Gray Cloud, George Ralph D'Icenzo as Darrell Diggs, Leo Futch as Chief Rabbi, Penny Pacer as Rosalie Bender, William Smith as Matt Diggs, Jack Somek as Samuel Bender, Beej Barkett as Sarah Mindel Bender, Shay Duffin as O'Leary, Walter Janowitz as Old Amish Man, Frank Duvall as Red Dog piano player, Joe Kapp as Paco Monterano, Clyde Cusatsu as Mr. Ping, Cliff Pello as Mr. Daniels, Etta Reis Marin as Mrs. Bender, Vincent Schiavelli as Brother Bruno, Ian Wolfe as Father Joseph. Production, Development, The film was in development for 7 years. It was known as No Knife for a long time, then briefly as Greenhorn before someone suggested the Frisco Kid. Robert Aldrich replaced director Dick Richards during pre-production. Roger Ebert wrote, "It's really nobody's movie." The screenplay has been around Hollywood for several years, and Aldrich seems to have taken it on as a routine assignment. According to Gene Wilder's autobiography, Kiss Me Like a Stranger, My Search for Love and Art, the Tommy Lillard role, played by Harrison Ford, was originally planned for John Wayne. John J. Puccio of Movie Metropolis writes that Wayne was eager to take it on as a comic follow-up to True Grit and Rooster Cogburn. Salary concerns nixed the idea, though, and it's questionable he would have finished the shooting, in any case, as he died shortly before the Frisco Kid opened. Another source says Wayne did not want to make the film due to vulgarity in the script. Wilder said he was offered the film in 1976 but turned it down. The script was rewritten, he read it again the following year, and thought it was better but still turned it down. However, when he read a revised second draft, he agreed to do it. Warner's asked him to work on the script, so he helped with the construction of a third draft, then wrote a fourth draft. Production. Filming started 30 October 1978 under the working title No Knife. Aldrich said, "With the exception of Bette Davis, Gene is the best actor I've worked with. He's very intuitive, very bright." Wilder said he liked working with Aldrich too, calling the film Young Frankenstein meets The Dirty Dozen and saying the way he chooses to do a scene is the most artistic of any director I've ever worked with. Aldrich did not always get on with Harrison Ford during the shoot. "I think every time Aldrich looked at Harrison, he saw John Wayne," said Mace Neufeld, the producer. Harrison was aware of that, but he was always fun to be around, very funny. Ford later said it was fun to work with Gene. "But every time the director, Robert Aldrich, looked at me, he was thinking about how unhappy he was that he didn't have John Wayne instead." Reception. Box office. The film earned $4.7 million at the U.S. box office in its first year. Critical response. On review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a 50% rating based on 26 reviews. Vincent Canby of the New York Times described the Frisco Kid as harmless chaos. "People keep coming and going and doing ferociously cute things, but never anything that could appeal to anyone except a close relative or someone with a built-in weakness for anything ethnic whatsoever." He criticized the lack of plot development, saying that, while based on a clever idea, the Frisco Kid ultimately fails to deliver on its promise. Roger Ebert gave the movie a mixed review, admitting that after seeing Cat Ballou, he was forever after spoiled on the subject of comic westerns. "The movie's based on a good idea, yes. But what approach do you take to this material? What's your comic tone?" The Frisco Kid tries for almost every possible tone. Jordan Hiller called it one of 25 essential Jewish movies, praising its uncommon innocence and unselfconscious humility. He called it an unpredictably paced part screwball comedy farce, part dramatic buddy picture, part spaghetti western, and wrote, "The Frisco Kid has the feel of an artist's charmingly naive youthful indiscretion." The Frisco Kid is, all pratfalls and touches jokes aside, the quintessential Torah movie. Reviewer Ken Hank wrote, "Robert Aldrich's penultimate film is an easygoing work of some considerable charm that relies far too much on ethnic humor, mostly Jewish, but not entirely to sit quite as comfortably as it might like. Aldrich's professionalism serves the film well. It's very hard to fault on a technical level, and he brings a strong visual sense to bear on a number of sequences that raise them several notches above the TV flavor of the material. The dance sequence, when Avram and his unlikely companion, Tommy Harrison Ford, are prisoners of a tribe of Indians, is a good case in point, as is the final shootout in the streets of San Francisco. Never a great movie, it's nonetheless a pleasant one, an old-fashioned entertainment that more than gets by on the unforced albeit unlikely chemistry Wilder and Ford. Puccio of Movie Metropolis called the film humorous and touching and uplifting as well. The Frisco Kid is not a great film. It's not even a very good film by the best filmmaking standards, but it's such a sweet and gentle film, it's hard not to like. The film moves along at a leisurely pace, and the director has a little difficulty finding the right comedic tone between dry. Wilder's performance was widely praised. Ebert wrote, "What's poignant about the film is that Wilder's performance is such a nice one. He's likable, plucky, versatile. He is, in fact, as good an actor here as he's ever been before, and at his own brand of complex vulnerability Gene Wilder has never been surpassed." Hank said, "But the main interest in the film is probably Gene Wilder's performance, which is interesting simply because it's one of the few times that Wilder played a character that was essentially Gene Wilder. And, lo and behold, he does a perfectly credible job of being someone else, or at least someone else who isn't Willy Wonka." Film scholar Stuart Galbraith Roman IV declares that Wilder gives one of his very best performances and calls his character incredibly endearing. The Frisco Kid is a real surprise, offering as it does one of Gene Wilder's best characterizations in a film that's alternately funny and sweetly touching. Puccio wrote, "Nobody does nice like Gene Wilder. Nor have many actors been so willing to celebrate their culture and religious convictions as Wilder does here, perhaps also a trait he picked up from Mel Brooks."